All right, we are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. This morning I'm joined by Senator Janice Bowling. She is a Republican in the Tennessee legislature who is behind a Senate bill right now, as you see on the screen, to push for medical marijuana legalization. Again, not recreational. Let's be real quick. It's very nice to have you on. We've got phone calls and comments. We're also streaming live on Facebook. If you'd like to jump in, newschannel5.com if you have some comments. And I'm just looking, not a lot of questions, but a lot of people supportive of what you're doing. Real quick, if you can, and I want to get to the phone calls, ma'am, but can you really quickly say, all right, if this passes, how does it work? You have a certain condition, you have to apply for a card. How does it work, and where do you go to get the medical marijuana?
All right, thank you very much. And I live in Tullahoma, Tennessee, where there are a lot of rocket scientists, but this bill is not rocket science, it's common sense. And what we did was look at the 33 states that already have legalized medical cannabis. 2/3 of the American population already have legal access to medical cannabis. And so we in Tennessee, someone said, well, let's don't rush into this. I said, oh, no, we can be accused of a lot of things, but rushing into it is not going to be one of them. But the bad news that we would be number 34 is also, in a way, the good news. We've been able to look at what's worked, what hasn't worked. We have just taken those things and aggregated policies that worked. So in Tennessee, in my bill, one thing that's unusual, there'll be a fast track that will take about 1.5 years, where we will have a commission appointed by the governor with recommendations from each speaker of each house, the House and the Senate, and then that commission would be like the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, a standalone commission. But they will have to come up with the application. There will be applications to plant, to produce, and to sell. And in the beginning, those will be vertically integrated in the rural areas, the rural vertically integrated.
Would you need
so
a prescription?
Do
you need a prescription or just the card?
No, you can't prescribe it.
Oh, okay.
And then what will happen, once we get those licenses and we have people growing, people producing, and people selling, and you go to your doctor, you get a diagnosis.
Oh, right, okay.
There's a list of diseases and conditions that the doctor would say, this patient has this. The doctor, if they wanted to recommend, they could, but legally they cannot prescribe because of the DEA.
I see. You're right. I've got you. I got you.
So then they go to the store, the medical cannabis store, with their card. And once the doctor gives you this and sends the information to the commission then enters that into an electronic database, the doctor that made the diagnosis, the patient that has this condition, and then the card would be issued to that patient, $65 for a 2-year card.
I think what you have here too, and I know there are some subtle differences, but you have a template kind of along the lines of what they're doing with CBD right now in the state. Now, I know there's not going to be a card right now for CBD, but the way it's being grown in Tennessee, so you're thinking then that there would be licensing for certain farmers to specifically grow in secure farm settings marijuana, which would then be processed into the medical marijuana.
It has to be secure. All of that would be part of the application. They have to have the capitalization to do this. 50% of the growers, the sellers of any license has to be held by a Tennessean. So in other words,
so there would be some Tennessee homegrown.
Well, it would be Tennesseans who would benefit, because this is now not only a life-saving thing, this will be a new revenue stream, and there's over $1 billion in Tennessee right now going into illegal marijuana. And what we need to do is to make people who are in need of this life-giving medical cannabis not have to go to a back alley or to the street or wherever and buy something that has not been controlled. You don't know how much THC is in it. You don't know if it's been oversprayed with pesticides or whatever. This is very controlled, regulated, healthy, secure, and you'll be able to go get it.
All right, let's take a few phone calls. What do you say? Let's go to Greg. Greg, good morning. Hi, Greg.
Hey, good morning, guys. It is so hard for me not to laugh at all this stuff. Come on, where has this been 40, 50 years ago? I mean, come on, Parkinson's, people suffering from Parkinson's. Marijuana cures so many things. It's unbelievable. But the problem is that we've had pharmaceutical companies and governments that have no idea what they're even talking about. The bottom line is this: it's going to be legalized as long as our legislators in our state can control all the profits, so they can collect all the profits. We don't have to have it special processed, all that kind of stuff. Come on, it's been since the 60s people have been mowing marijuana. We don't need the state of Tennessee to tell us how we should, or if we should, or how we should do this, or how we should do that.
Now, you do want to regulate it. I want to hit on one thing he said early on there about, have you had any pushback yourself or any of your colleagues from pharmaceuticals that for some reason don't like this? I'm just curious if you have.
Pharmaceuticals, and it's, you know, when you're a carpenter, everything looks like a hammer and a nail, and when you're a pharmacist, you want everything to look like a pill. Yeah. And so it's just not. And this is a healthy, natural substance. Now, what the previous caller said, there are many people right now who are using medical cannabis, and some of it is good for them, and some of it might have all sorts of things that aren't good for them. And he thinks that our bill, which will legalize it, is too much regulation, and he's willing for it to stay illegal. And I really think that we can't leave people in that predicament.
No, there's law-abiding citizens that want to do it. You made the example of that woman with pancreatic cancer that has to go out on the street and buy this, and that's awful. That's just awful. That's wrong. You know what that is? It's immoral. It's immoral. And it helps her get better, and she has to go on the street, and it's a criminal, and buy her marijuana. That's ridiculous. I had a lady who was buying it for her husband who was dying of cancer, but the last several months of his life, that was the only thing that could give him any relief from the pain and any ability to still eat and whatever. But she felt like a criminal. And we should not make law-abiding citizens have to go out, and had she been caught, she could have been charged with trafficking. Can you imagine? But we know that there are places where our law enforcement is being forced to just kind of turn their head when they know a family might have a loved one and they're using it for that loved one. This is medical cannabis we're talking about. It would be used inside your home, and it would be coming from a store. And to contrast with what the gentleman just said, you know, what we're saying is necessary, I think, to make sure that we've got a good product. But I don't want it. I would agree with him. I don't want this to be totally pharmaceutical in as much as they will take it and run it through all of their pill mills, no pun intended, and then the cost of it would be astronomical, and the benefits would not be any better. Yeah, you want it to be affordable for the people who need it as well. Let's go to Peter next. Peter, good morning. Hi.
Hey, how you doing, Nick?
Good, Peter.
I just have a slight comment. I'm an older person now, and I don't smoke marijuana. You know, I've tried it when I was young, but that's it. Didn't like it, and I don't smoke it. But I think this whole issue is a tempest in a teapot. I think the Republicans are getting blamed for opposing marijuana. I don't think that's the case at all. Most Republicans are like me. We have strong libertarian streaks in us, and I personally don't care if people smoke marijuana. I think we ought to just legalize it, be done with it, let the state regulate it, take it out of the hands of the street vendors and importers, and be done with it. You know?
Okay, let's say this, and I hear where he's going. I'm cutting people off because we have so many calls we're going to get through once you make your point, and that's a good one. I think it's fair to say that obviously you are a conservative Republican and you're advocating, and in fact you're spearheading this effort. But there is still opposition in the legislature, and I would imagine mostly among other conservative Republicans. What are you hearing? Do any of their arguments wash with you? No, actually, one says there's not enough research. Another says there is evidence that it will cause schizophrenia. There are just some say it's a gateway drug. Maybe you get started. Again, we're not legalizing it recreationally. No. But let me address all those. Right now, it's a gateway drug because street vendors will actually give it to the young people, and because it really doesn't give you that much of a high or whatever, and if the THC is low, then they say, well, if you really want something, let me give you this pill, and then they will gateway. If it were not a gateway, you know, gateways, if it were enough that kept everybody high and stoned and whatever, then that would not be a gateway. It would be the end of the road. Right. But instead, it is so mild and
they, I think, use the ones that are low THC in order to entice someone.
So you don't see someone using medical marijuana saying, gee, I like this, I'm going to go get some heroin.
No.
Yeah, that's absurd.
No,
It is absolutely absurd.
That is absolutely. And schizophrenia, Harvard Law School, Harvard Medical School has disproven
no
that.
evidence of that scientific of that
no
whatsoever.
Evidence whatsoever.
Let's go to Nathan. You're right. Nathan, good morning. Hi, Nathan. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Matthew. I apologize. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yes, sir. I just want to say I've been on both sides of the fence. When I was younger, I was president of the Drug Alliance, and I was taught that marijuana was like this really bad substance. It was a gateway drug. And as I've gotten older, I spent time in the military. Well, I developed PTSD. 2 years ago, I tried marijuana for the first time, and it completely changed my life. And now I've become an advocate for it.
Right.
But also at the same time, I understand the bad side of it. But it can really help a lot of people, not just people with PTSD, but also people with cancer, Parkinson's, like you guys have talked about, Alzheimer's. It actually has been shown to reduce the development of Alzheimer's in some cases. Now, I just want to bounce off of something y'all just spoke about of the schizophrenia. In some cases, it actually can cause that, but it's not in every single case.
Actually,
Go ahead.
Actually, what the Harvard Medical School study showed is that people who have a hereditary predisposition to schizophrenia, well, you know, maybe that last cup of coffee caused it. So even though it's there, that is not the causative factor. And so there's an article that's been going around this last month or so. People have called me on, but Janice. And I said, this man writes these not spy, but criminal, just thrillers, kind of, sort of. He's a reporter for New York Times. That is the worst piece of journalism I've ever seen. His wife works in a mental institution and said everybody there smoked pot. They probably also drank water. They probably also had tea.
Thank you.
That's not causation.
It's easy to grab onto those red herrings.
No.
We should say, too, I've had a few people commenting on this. If and when medical marijuana is legalized here, the way a patient would be able to take it, it's not necessarily that you have to smoke it. There would be other ways. You know, and it's true. Marijuana, anything you smoke is not going to be great for your lungs, period, okay? But some people will smoke marijuana, and that's fine. Right. But it'll come in pill form, maybe. It'll come in possibly edibles, pills.
Right now, we're sitting here in Tennessee with all the states that border us, and we're not aware that in 33 states there are people producing the edibles, the gel caps, the creams, the externals, whatever the condition needs it to be in. The modality is kind of determined by the condition, and the amount of THC is determined by the condition. So you're not going to have someone with some, and these conditions, none of them are mild, I can't say that, but if you're going to have someone who has more need for the THC in order for the body to help itself heal from that or to deal with that, then those are the different modalities. So you have this one. There are over 200 strands of medical cannabis that have been bred now, and what will be planted in these grow houses that are very secure will be the clones. And in most cases,
and so a certain one will do something for one person, another breed will do another one, another strain, another one.
This has already been determined. This has already been proven. This is already settled science, if you will. And so we will know what people can need. But vaping, for some people, that modality is good, but we're not even talking about smoking in our bill. We're talking about the edibles, the gel caps, the drops.
So very similar to what we see being done legally right now in Tennessee with CBD.
That's right.
There are, everything she's saying would be the same way with medical marijuana.
And you know, Nick, the CBD had been on the controlled list up until just a couple
of... The Farm Bill
took
it off.
The Farm Bill took it off. So right now, it had been controlled until they realized it should not have been
Tell you what, ma'am, that's going to be the new cash crop in Tennessee. I saw the deadline to apply to grow for next year was just last week.
February 15th.
They had a record number of people signing up to grow CBD, and boy, they're going to make some money. It's really taking off. Listen, let's take a break on that. When we come back, I'll get your thought. And we have, as you see here, more phone calls. If you'd want to join in the conversation, you see the number on the screen. Also, we're streaming live right now on Facebook at newschannel5.com. And as I say, I'm going to try to pass any questions you have, but most of the people here on this are supporting what you're doing. So we'll take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.